Hello, and welcome to the FilmSoc Quarantine Livestream. I think this is number 4, we think, or number 3. And today we're going to be looking at fractured timelines, because time is relative, truth is subjective, and history is written by the victors. Um, so I'm Peter, I'm the host, and I'm just going to let everybody introduce themselves with a film that they watched this week.
Hi, I'm Kat, and I watched Begin Again with Film Society last night.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I watched half of Friday the 13th and half of It Follows, if that counts.
I'm Devon. I don't think I've watched a film this week. That's really mad.
God,
I've seen a
Good
lot of Miss Maisel. Miss Maisel's great. Watch that. Yeah.
And of course, I'm Peter, and I watched Extraction this week.
Oh.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. It's a Netflix film. It's a new one with Chris Hemsworth, and it's directed by Sam Hargreaves, who did a lot of the stunt choreography for the Marvel films. And it's basically like a hyper-violent white savior sort of film. It's like, have you ever seen those like Indonesian action flicks like The Raid?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like it's taken the style of The Raid, seen the Western appeal of John Wick, and tried to like push it, and I don't think it works at all. Like it's not as good as either of it. It's not as stylish as the John Wick films, and then it's just like not as like entertaining as the Raid and other Indonesian films, so it just sort of like falls apart. But I think other people would really like it though, to be fair.
Like everything I've heard talked about online about that film, everyone's like, it's got a 12-minute action scene. It's really great. There's a 12-minute action scene, which is awesome. 12 minutes, one shot. It's really great. And it's like, I guess that's really good. But what about the rest of the film around it?
Well, exactly. It's sort of like, and it's sort of like, it's heavy gunfire. You don't get, like with John Wick, it always brings you into like a really interesting environment, and you're like, oh, let's go and play around with that. And here it's like, oh, this is an Indian slum, and then this is like an Indian street, and there's very little variety in what you're seeing. It's just like, and has an 18 rating. It's quite surprising actually, because I think the John Wick films actually are more visceral than this ever was. I think it's just the fact that there's so much blood, but it's not a huge amount of like attention to injury or anything like that. Yeah, if you're bored, give it a go. I'll say. But it's also like nearly 2 hours long. I think it's too long of a film for what it is. Yeah, right. Well, before we get into our main topic today, I thought we'd just try to act like this is a normal situation and go over some of the charts. Also, on Netflix today, and I took these on Sunday, just if anyone's keeping tabs. Number 10, we've got The Plagues of Breslau. Number 9, we've got Minions. 8 is Contagion. Number 7 is Time Trap. Number 6 is Night Hunter. Number 5 is Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials. Number 4 is Breaking In. Number 3 is Space Jam. Number 2 is The Willoughbys, and then number 1 is Extraction.
Again, I haven't heard of most of them.
Was the Maze Runner there last week?
Yeah.
No, I think it was just added on, so it's obviously been quite popular on Netflix. I think I'll watch actually, because I watched the first one a while ago, and I enjoyed it well enough. I've never read the book, so I don't have anything like to say, oh, this is nothing like the books, sort of thing. So,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I might watch The Scorch Trials at some point. Probably not, actually.
I remember when I first watched it in the cinema, I think I cried at the end. Because it was how old would I have been when it came out? Probably like 14-ish, right?
I think you might have been older.
I have the
I was
book
older
here, I
than
can
that.
check if
That's
you
quite
want.
really, because it's really quite a sad statement. I mean, not the second one, because I never saw the second one, but the first one. Because like at the end, doesn't someone? I don't know. I can't remember.
There's a death that it's quite like sad. It's quite
there we
sad.
go. It's not terrible.
No, I
One of those
cried
happy
too.
deaths.
Okay, good. See, if Alex did, then it's fine.
There's happy deaths. I've been happy sometimes when a character dies, but this one, it's just like really, really sad.
Did they finish Maze Runner?
Yeah, they just about finished it. Divergent, I can't remember if it didn't finish it or they were just about able to make it into a TV film.
I think even that got cancelled, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Where I got one of the TV films and then needed another one to complete the story and just didn't get there. It was something like that. It was really sad. I mean, it wasn't that sad. I mean, it was Divergent. Like, I suppose if you're a fan of the books and you needed something else in your, fandom, then yeah, it would be sad. But yeah, these are sort of like the last of these like dystopian young adult adaptations of the fad. Like the last Maze Runner and Divergent, and they just sort of like limped to the end. Like even the Hunger Games franchise, like it did well at the end, but it wasn't doing as well as it did in the middle of the franchise. It just sort of like limped off a wee bit more of a whimper than a bang.
Do you guys think that that's because the trend sort of ended in pop culture, or do you think it's because the audience aged down to the films?
I think it was because a lot of adaptations of that sort of books were coming out, as Peter has said, and they did every saga did a terrible job adapting the books. Because I remember I went to see every Hunger Games movie and every Divergent movie, even if it was like not really my style anymore, but just because I was a fan of the books and I like enjoyed it. But they did such a terrible job that I understood why people stopped going. Because when they did Mortal Instruments, it was just such a catastrophe. Like, you wanted to cry just because of how bad of a job they did. So I think that's why people stopped going, because it was like, it's not worth it. I'm not going to spend £9 on, a movie that's going to, just because I like the book and they're going to do a terrible job ruining it for me. So.
We'll get back to this point in a wee while, actually. Good. Yeah. I've got some really great movie news that just sort of broke today. It'll be quite fun.
Oh no.
Sorry, Devon, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, if you think that people weren't willing to go and pay money to see it, do you think that's why it's so popular on Netflix? Because it's everyone who skipped it at the cinema and is now like, well, I still care about this franchise because I read the books, etc., but I don't want to pay money.
I think so. I think that's what's really interesting by continuing to look at these charts and things, because you got people renting and buying these films, and I imagine they didn't actually see them in cinemas to begin with. And it could be quite interesting to see how that affects a fandom or a fan base afterwards, because it might grow it, like a lot of cult films, it might grow a fan base during this like pandemic period through sort of streaming and stuff. Well, we'll get on to the Google Play charts. So I took these today. Number 10 is Spies in Disguise. Number 9, The Gentleman. Number 8, Bloodshot. Number 7, Sonic. Number 6, Trolls World Tour. Number 5, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Number 4, Frozen 2. Number 3, Knives Out. Then Jumanji, The Next Level, and finally we've got The Rise of Skywalker. Does this surprise anyone?
The Harley Quinn and Frozen just went down suddenly, or is it just me that I remembered the charts wrong? But I thought they were up.
Well, I think Frozen 2 dropped down a wee bit, but Birds of Prey only opened in the UK here this week on it, and it's only available to buy. So you're looking at like a $12.99 price. Well, I think all the other films on this list are available for rental. So I actually think that's not a bad positioning for Birds of Prey, especially considering it's got 15 certificate, while the rest of these films are like 12 or U or PG. I think The Gentleman's quite interesting because it has been out for a while, and then this is just like a little resurgence. I think this is sort of like one of those films we were talking about where it came out and some people went to see it, but not a whole lot, which is basically every Guy Ritchie film. At this point, I think the same thing happened with King Arthur, where it did actually like really poorly at the box office, but it was really entertaining to watch on streaming. Like, it's entertaining, but you won't go to the cinema to watch it.
That film has a really weirdly kind of affectionate like fan base. If you go on any like YouTube clip or trailer of that film, all the comments are like, this film is amazing, it's perfect, it should have done so much better. And obviously none of those people watched it in cinemas because it made no money. But yeah, it's a strange sort of, I think it's so like disjointed and messy that it is a good have on in the background film, and it has the few key like moments that are enough.
Yeah, and David Beckham's acting debut.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Did you not do that?
No.
Oh, okay. I heard he's not very good. So
Wow.
people just don't make that transition.
I mean, it's a film of people who just aren't very, like, great actors, they're just not doing a great job. It's really not a good film. Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
I was going to, slightly tangential, but do you guys know about the origins of Spies in Disguise? Did we ever talk about that on the show?
I don't think so.
Don't think so.
So the premise of the film is Will Smith is like a super spy. He's basically playing James Bond, and Tom Holland is this little like kid who's playing with a science experiment. And through very strange, well, I don't even know the circumstances, but it seemed just completely out of the blue, Will Smith ingests like a little potion thing, a little chemistry thing that Tom Holland, the kid scientist, made, and turns into a pigeon. And he's a pigeon for the rest of the film, which is weird, but it gets even weirder when you go and trace the film back, because the film originally came from a short film which got optioned for a screenplay. It was a very popular short film, and the popular short film includes a kind of very traditional 80s kind of detective spy with a briefcase containing like a nuclear bomb. And he goes into a park bench and he puts it down ready to do like a trade with someone. And a pigeon flies and picks it up and flies away. And the pigeon isn't a human. It's just a normal pigeon. And the short is a very sweet short of this like spy trying to get this briefcase back from this normal pigeon. And it got optioned for a script. And I don't know how many exec meetings they were like, there's no story in this. This isn't a feature film. And then someone was like, what if the pigeon is a super spy? It's just, I hope they have some behind the scenes thing when it comes out on DVD, like just talking about the production, because it, yeah. Anyway, that was just confusing.
We've actually got like a surprising amount of movie news this week. Believe it or not. Yeah, I was able to pick up some stuff. What I was just going to mention there is I think we talked about it last week, and The Rise of Skywalker is going to end up on Disney Plus on May the 4th.
2 months sooner than it was originally, right?
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense that they want to do it on May the 4th because that's Star Wars Day. So
Yeah,
it's part of their big push of sort of like, binge the entire Skywalker saga on Star Wars Day.
I'm gonna binge the whole thing. I'm not gonna sleep for 2 days. I'm just gonna start on May 3rd night and then just go through the whole day.
My plan is to watch episode 2, then the final season of Clone Wars, and then episode 3.
Ooh, that's a good shout, actually.
Yeah, and then I think I'm going to end up watching Rise of Skywalker again because my dad didn't get to see it in cinema, so I'll probably just do that. But anyway, news, we've got a lot of it, and a really, really great one just broke at the end. I can't wait to get to it. So first of all, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, whether you saw it or not, it's getting a sequel. This felt like one of those films where a lot of people were really excited about it, and then it came out and no one cared. I'm quite amazed it's getting a sequel, but good for people that enjoyed it and liked the books. So Whitney Houston is getting a biopic film from the writers of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
I probably won't see it. I don't like this fad.
probably
I'm just sort of like really against these sort of like, let's make biopics of musical people.
Yeah.
Scoob is another casualty of theatres being closed. It's being moved to on demand on May 15th. This is obviously, you have so many films, and until you try to re-slate all of it, you're also going to have more new films the following year, and you have to just chug a wee bit out of the clogs, so to speak. Netflix has added 16 million subscribers. Yeah, which is good for them because they took out ridiculous loans to make these films and TV shows that they honestly would never have been able to pay back had this not happened. But and even now we're still not sure. Like, the loans are insane and the interest rates on them, like, it's actually kind of scary. But yeah, this one was brought to me by Kat. Sony is developing a One Punch Man film, which is obviously based on the manga and anime of the same name.
I would say you, that is not technically me telling you that you found that out. I just said go and watch One Punch Man.
No, I'm pretty sure you messaged me saying, "Oh, have you?"
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Actually,
No. That's the most ridiculous anime. No.
I'm for one. I'm excited.
I bet it's going to be like M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar film, where everyone's just like, "Could you be any more white?"
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, they'll definitely like have a white person playing.
Or Tilda Swinton as the ancient one.
If they have Jason Statham actually playing the guy, I would watch it. Turn it into a drinking game. That's the only way I would watch One Punch Man.
This next one was actually my favorite one until the final bit of news broke today. Florence Pugh, Shia LaBeouf, and Chris Pine are the star in Olivia Wilde's latest film, Don't Worry, Darling, a psychological thriller set in an isolated utopian community in the 1950s Californian desert. And this sounds amazing. I can't wait.
I'm sold. I don't need to see anymore. I'm avoiding posters, avoiding trailers, avoiding plot details.
Yeah.
I love Florence Pugh, Chris Pine, and Olivia Wilde is a brilliant director.
And
Like, she's so good.
They're doing it with Shia LaBeouf. I might be the only one excited about that.
Especially Shia LaBeouf he's the type of person who only takes weird, interesting projects nowadays. He's kind of gone the Elijah Wood, Daniel Radcliffe, Robert Pattinson route of he's got enough money so he can just do really good scripts. So
I'm so excited for this.
And especially excited because Florence Pugh, I thought that she might get kind of swept up in all the Marvel stuff and only be a big blockbuster person from now on. But this is exactly what I want her to be in. This is
Netflix has acquired the rights to Enola Holmes, which tells the story of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes' rebellious teen sister Enola. The film will star Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Sam Claflin, and Helena Bonham Carter. I always stumble over that. That's a hard name.
Bonham Carter.
Bonham Carter.
I don't know what I think about that.
I mean, I like the actors, but I'm not going to watch this.
Yeah.
It feels like, what was the Will Ferrell one?
Holmes and Watson.
Yeah, that. And before it, Sherlock Gnomes. You know, it just feels like the final addition to this like unofficial trilogy of Sherlock Holmes parodies that we've been building over the years.
I mean, there have been good Sherlock films. Like there was the Holmes film with Ian McKellen that came out fairly recently. That was like a retired Sherlock Holmes saving one last case.
I remember seeing the trailer for that, but didn't watch it. Did you see it?
No, but I heard very good things.
Yeah. I like the Guy Ritchie films.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a popular opinion, but I actually prefer it to the show. I really like the Victorian setting with like a little bit of a supernatural twist to it. That's very up my alley.
I feel like when the films were coming out and the show was coming out, the show was in the first 2 seasons, and it was sort of the popular opinion to prefer the show over the films. But I feel like after the show went a bit downhill and the films have aged a bit, I feel like that's completely switched now. I feel like the sort of hip thing to do is like the films rather than the show. The whole thing suddenly switched.
Well, I always preferred the films.
Yeah.
I preferred the films before it was cool.
There it is.
I think they're making a third one of them.
But Guy Ritchie isn't attached yet. It's just them, those two.
Yeah, Downey Jr. now. That'll be way off. It's like Uncharted, it just keeps getting pushed. Although Uncharted was brought forward, it's actually slated for July 2021 now, before Spider-Man 3, which was pushed to November 2021. And Tom Holland said in a recent interview that he doesn't know which one's going to film first. And yeah, I feel really sorry for Tom Holland. Between all of this and Chaos Walking.
Oh, Chaos Walking.
We'll get to Chaos Walking actually right now, because Daisy Ridley is teaming with Ready or Not directors for a new film called The Ice Beneath Her, which is based on, I think it's a Swedish novel. It's like a psychological thriller. But I'm just glad she's getting work.
Did any of you see Ready or Not?
No, I heard it was good too.
It was one of those films that was in cinemas for like a really long time, just simmering in the background. And I kept hearing good things, but it just wasn't quite enough to push me to see it.
Yeah. I'll try to watch this one, but I did hear really good things. I think there are 3 of them, like 3 directors.
Oh, wow.
And they're all like called something else. It's like Radio something, or Radio Silence maybe. I can't remember. I'll look it up at some point. Okay, this is my favorite one. This just dropped by Deadline. Oh my god, so good. Oh, because I finally have all the box office numbers from 2019. And now we know who made the biggest losses.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to go from, we've got the top 5. So I'll go from 5, as in they've lost the least amount of money, to who's lost the most. So number 5 is Missing Link, which lost $101.3 million.
Oh.
Number 2, Gemini Man, which lost $111.1 million. Number 3, believe it or not, is Cats, which lost $113.6 million. Number 4 is Terminator Dark Fate, which lost $122.6 million. And then, guess who made...
Please tell me Sonic.
It's not. It's X-Men Dark Phoenix, which lost $133 million.
133 million.
And Disney gets to inherit all of it.
Good. I hope they don't make an X-Men movie ever again, because they did a terrible, terrible job, and they deserve that. They deserve it. I am not sad at all.
It wouldn't have been so bad had Disney not made them do all the reshoots. I mean, I know they were doing reshoots beforehand, but I think Marvel was like, oh, they've got like Skrulls and we've got Skrulls. Let's reshoot the entire like final act of this film a couple of times, and then like hiring Hans Zimmer to write score that's not going to get used. Like a lot of their loss is stuff that just didn't end up in the final product to begin with.
And I think the biggest thing, which is sort of how on earth did this creative decision like get put forward, is that, you know, obviously they did the Dark Phoenix stuff before in X-Men 3, written by the same guy they got to not only write but direct Dark Phoenix. They basically got him to remake his own film that had failed. And it's just, I mean, he's been a really good sport about it. He's like really opened up about how it was completely his fault and he shouldn't have been on the project. But why would you do that?
I actually feel quite bad for this guy, because I think it's a wee bit like Zack Snyder's Justice League, where it was originally conceptualized as a 2-part film. And then something changes and now it's suddenly one film, and then you've got another studio meddling in. I think he's like, this is really good PR for him. I think he's handling this really well and being like self-deprecating in that sort of sense. But I imagine this is really just a Josh Trank sort of situation. If you guys don't remember, he directed the 2015 Fantastic Four film.
You mean Fantastic?
Yeah, of course, Fantastic. I actually have it somewhere in my library behind me. Yeah, it was for a bad movie night. I want to see it in cinemas again for the so bad it's good quality. It doesn't disappoint. It takes a wee while. It's a wee bit boring, but then like the final act, oh my god, it's so good.
And of course, his Capone film no, it's not called Capone. Is it still called Capone? They changed the name.
I think so. I think it's called with Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just called.
Yeah.
I didn't actually watch the trailer for that. What was it like?
It looks like every other low-budget crime film. Yeah.
Oh, God.
A lot of people seem excited about it just because like people are such big fans of Tom Hardy, don't they? Like I always see like on Facebook like pages and things like that are all about like movie news and stuff like that, but it's kind of, I was about to sound so pompous then, I was about to go, but it's not really highbrow movie news. I was literally about to say that, but like I mean like it's not stuff on A24 movies and stuff, or like slightly unusual things, or like, oh, what's this movie doing? It's things like see a fan who drew Nightwing as, I don't know, like Tom Holland, I don't know. It's just
like the type of things which will do a trailer breakdown of every Marvel trailer and then not mention any film which costs less than 300 million to make.
Yes. That's exactly what I mean. And like those people are really excited about Capone, but I know what you mean. It just doesn't, to me, I'm looking at it and I'm sort of like, huh? But I think maybe he's possibly, I mean, Tom Hardy's never kind of been under the rug, has he? I suppose, particularly in like sort of like the years after Mad Max and stuff. But like, he's never been under the rug, but I feel like he is slightly riding a wave of popularity at the moment.
I mean, he has some sort of like films that weren't huge, like things like The Drop and stuff, you know. I think there's a huge conversation right now about like the movie star being gone, you know, that's not enough to drag, you know, to pull an audience in. I don't know.
I was just going to say, I feel like he sort of is one of those like actors who he's very, or at least the public eye is very good at covering up his flops. Like, I feel like nobody really talks about Legends, but that was like the big, going to be Tom's Hardy, the film that he'll be remembered for.
Yeah.
And he just like wasn't, or even films like The Revenant. He's like a really big part of that film, but he's remembered for very specific things, but those very specific things are weirdly popular, and he's the weirdly popular part about a lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, it's got Venom at the minute. I think it'll be okay.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not worried about Tom Hardy's career because he decided a Capone film.
So just for a quick, the one I was trying to think of, and I've just looked it up, he was in a film called Charles 44 with Gary Oldman and Noomi Rapace and Joel Kinnaman that like looked really... Oh, and Jason Clarke. It has this really huge cast. It came out in 2015, and it just... I don't even know if it came into cinemas. Nobody saw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It just happens like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. First topic, guys. So, how should we introduce this? Right, well, it's not so much a thing now, which is actually kind of sad. Some people still do it, most people don't, because studios want to see how much they can sell, or for as little, you know, or rather, how little they can sell for as much. But back in the old days, a lot of DVDs had special features, and on those special features, there would be deleted scenes. Little tidbits that didn't quite make the cut for the films, and I want to hear your guys' favorites.
Ooh.
I like when I was researching this, the one that I found that was like a one that I think a lot of people know about is the deleted scene in Mean Girls.
There's something.
I don't know.
Wait.
It's quite a good one as well, because it's in it there's a scene where, like, you know how, I guess spoilers for Mean Girls, but something happens to Regina, an accident happens, who's kind of like the main bad girl in the film, and main mean girl, I guess. And she there's a scene where Caddy like apologizes to her really sincerely, and they have like a nice little like sort of, I understand, like I'm still like, Regina's sort of like still got her slightly like sort of high in power thing, but she really empathizes and like understands Caddy's like apology and is really sweet about it. And like it's only a little thing, but it completely changes, like, because when the film comes to the end, you're sort of like, okay, yeah, that's good, but like I wish that scene had been in it, just for in terms of like girl power kind of thing, and like having empathy for each other and things like that. I think it would have like made it a better film, and I don't really know why they took it out.
Also because I think it adds to the character development, because at the end it's just, you see, okay, it's spoilers, but the bad girl actually ends up being good, and you know, which is kind of predictable, but you don't see that growth or why she does it.
Yeah, it's like a nice change, it's a good thing to happen in the story, and yet you don't really see it, why it would. I suppose she's been through that kind of like redemptive arc in the film. I suppose she has, but that apology scene that's deleted is kind of like the epitome of sort of her growth as a person, and it's just been removed.
But
that would be my answer anyway.
That's a good one. I did not know that. The amount of times that I've watched that movie and I did not see that. Mine is from The Nightmare Before Christmas. So there's a bunch of them, but there's some deleted scenes of one of the options of the ending. So there's the main guy is called Oogie Boogie. So he's supposed to be the boogeyman, you know, Oogie Boogie. And the ending that they initially thought about was having Dr. Frickelstein, who's Frankenstein's doctor, more or less, be the bad guy, but all dressed up. And he was supposed to undress himself out of the Oogie Boogie costume, because in the end he was like in love with Sally, but because Sally loved Jack and he created Sally to fall in love with him, he was jealous. But in the end,
that's too dark.
That it's very dark. It's very dark. But it's
oh my
really
god!
Good.
Which is weird, because when I was watching the film, I always felt quite like paternal sort of relationship. Like I never really got the sense that he made her to love him romantically.
Yeah, it's weird because he does make. You can see he makes things to feel loved because he's alone. I'm gonna do this very briefly because otherwise I can talk about this for all night. You can see that because at the end he makes another wife for himself out of a very similar head to his, but because Sally is like the rebel and doesn't want to go under his, guides and stuff like that, he kind of just, reprimands her for not following the rules. So that's the kind of paternal relationship, but you can see that he's just looking for someone to be the 50s perfect wife. It's very weird. It's very weird.
I think possibly it makes maybe the reason that they went with that, of course, like it's a little bit dodgy for like a Disney movie, because like the one I'm going to talk about in not too long is The Lion King, but not here. But like there's I suppose maybe the reason they didn't go for it is just because like, oh, this guy just wants to be loved, and maybe they didn't want to delve into the whole idea of having like a sympathetic villain and everything. But it would have been an infinitely like more scary villain in a way.
Yeah, but I definitely think that.
Yeah,
I don't think they would redeem Oogie Boogie just for making it Frickelstein, but they would make Frankenstein worse.
Yes.
The ending that you have now, you kind of feel for him because he's not bad, he's just very lonely.
Yeah.
But if he actually took pleasure in torturing people as Oogie Boogie, then that's dark, that's bad.
That is, wow.
And enslaving kids.
Mine, there's a lot of deleted scenes that are like part of alternative cuts, so I guess I'll save that for alternative cuts. But the one that it doesn't have an alternative cut, and it's a film that I adore and despise because it it had so much potential and it executed in so much, but it dropped the ball in so many places, is Prometheus. I think there's such a brilliant film in Prometheus. And if you look at some of the deleted scenes, there's so many like little interesting bits and pieces. I've got my hands on like one of the early drafts of Prometheus when it was called like Alien Paradise, I think. Paradise Lost, that I need to read at some point. But even then, the original like ideas that the writer had that kind of Ridley Scott took and injected some very interesting stuff, but also took away a lot of interesting stuff, and sort of made it kind of a bit more shiny and a bit more set and a bit less interesting. There's just so many like the scene where David is talking to the Promethean. There's a like deleted scene where it's actually got the translation of what he's saying. There's a deleted scene of like a different way that the alien mutates people. There's a deleted like little clips of the fight between Nubian Rapaz's character and the Promethean coming in. Oh, it's
wow.
It's like such. They were trying to go for a very Lovecraftian feel of it, and I feel like they took away too much to try and make it more like a normal sci-fi movie or a normal horror movie. But yeah, there's like hour-long documentaries on YouTube. If you're a fan of Prometheus, absolutely delve into them because they're so interesting.
Yeah, that stuff are really cool. Like Prometheus was one of those films I feel like the alien aspects of it weren't done well enough to warrant them being in the film for me. I don't mean like general alien aspects, I mean sort of like xenomorph sort of aspects. It wasn't scary, it wasn't gory enough or whatever for me. And I think it detracted quite a lot from it because the rest that was going on was quite interesting. It really should have just been its own sort of film, I think. I haven't watched Alien Covenant yet.
Have you not?
No, I've got it recorded. Remember when I told you guys a while ago that I record? Like,
you should. You should.
I'm gonna watch it.
The same reason that I'm saying you should is the reason that Devon's saying you shouldn't.
I feel like I need to see it. I haven't seen Alien 3 though because I know how it starts and that's like it's unacceptable.
Oh, why? You've got to.
I don't know, like I don't know. I'm not a big enough fan of David Fincher to sort of like complete the collection of David Fincher films, just to sort of like suffer this abuse on aliens. You know, like it just torments its predecessors.
If you ever break down and watch it, make sure to do, leading on to your next section, the assembly cut, which is the studio like completely messed up with David Fincher's what he was trying to do with that film. And I think in the end, he was completely removed from the post-production process, but the crew like wanted his vision to be there. So they like let him do his own little side cut, which eventually they managed to get the studio to publish. So yeah, it's still not perfect in no way, but it's better. It's a lot better.
I'll look out for it. Just before we move on to the next section, I need to mention my favorite deleted scenes.
Please, yeah.
Scooby-Doo, the movie, the first one, and they are horrifyingly brilliant. Oh my god! Right. So the first Scooby-Doo film got like slammed by critics because like it's too scary for kids and not scary enough for adults. But these deleted scenes sort of show a very different film. If you guys have seen it, this is a really old film. I don't feel bad about saying this. Monsters are sort of taking over the bodies of this like vacation island amusement park sort of thing. And after an ambush at nighttime, Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and one of the friends haven't been taken over, but everybody else has. And there's this wonderful scene where Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne goes into the ladies' changing room and finds Velma sort of just like dancing with all these other women, and it's so creepy. Oh my god. Because, like, the idea is that the monsters try to act like normal people, and then as soon as it sort of, like, realizes that Daphne isn't one of them, the way, like, Velma's neck just goes like that sort of thing, like, just twisting and jagging, and just sort of like, and the voice goes weird, and it's, oh my god. You guys need to watch these scenes. I wish I had an alternative cut of Scooby-Doo the movie with these scenes added in. I think there's actually one of them that's sort of like, it doesn't make sense with like the scene explains something else, or like, or rather it shows something happens that's just sort of like implied later on. Sorry, that made me kind of fun. Right, so yeah, sometimes, as Devon was saying, although like deleted scenes might end up back into an alternative cut, whether that's for TV, the studio just wanted to do it for a little bit of promotion, or it was by the director's request. So I want to ask everybody what their favorite alternative cut is of the film.
I haven't exactly got the one that I think is interesting. It is not one that I would want to see, but the one that I mentioned before about like sort of like creepy children's movies, and I guess we've kind of got that as a running theme actually in this show, is like creepy versions of kids movies. But the one that I know about is like, and anybody that's kind of like a fan of The Lion King probably knows this, is that in an original storyboard for The Lion King, and I'm not sure if it makes it into the stage play or not, like I've never seen the stage play or anything, so I'm not sure, but there's the song Be Prepared that Scar sings in the feature film to be sort of like, be prepared for my reign kind of thing, we're going to start this rebellion kind of thing, it was originally in this storyboard going to be a song that he was going to sing to Nala, who is the love interest of the main character Simba. So she's like a generation below him, like younger than him, Scar's Simba's uncle, and so he was going to sing it to her, and it was going to be like, be prepared, I'm already king, get prepared for the reign, but also get prepared to become my queen, which is so messed up and weird. Yeah. And the fact, I'm very glad that it was scrapped. Like, it's not so, I would not want to see it, but there is somebody on YouTube, I don't know if they fan animated it or what, but there is an animation of it. There's like a video of the storyboard being shown, like if you want to see each storyboard, and like the voice acting, because they even did voice acts for it and everything to test it, and then they did somebody's animated it. It is interesting, and like if you're a fan of the film, I guess like go and check it out, but I'm very glad it didn't make it in. That would be the one. And the other one that I was gonna say isn't exactly an alternative cut of a film, but the thing that jumped to mind when you said, can you look up alternate kind of like movies, was the fact that the one that just plagues me to this day is the fact that Guillermo del Toro was going to direct the Hobbit movies. That just that infinitely is sad that like that never happened. So yeah, those would be my suggestions.
Guillermo del Toro is going to direct a lot of films. I've learned not to get my hopes up.
Yeah.
Like if you ever see his like on a headline that he's attached to a project, you like roll a 10-sided dice, and if it gets a 10, maybe.
He actually has his own Wikipedia page called Unrealized Guillermo del Toro Projects.
Oh my God.
And it has like sublinks to different decades, like they organize them by decades, and then you have like little quick jumps from there. Like ones that didn't make it in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. It's so sad. It's like a graveyard.
I suppose for alternative cuts, like we've just got to say that Lord of the Rings, you know, it's sort of default that you go for extended edition, right? Nobody watches the theatrical Lord of the Rings anymore. Oh no.
I'm not like a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, so
okay.
I usually opt for the shorter options. But I know a lot of people really do like the extended edition, so I want to hear what you have to say.
I just there's no other way to watch them there. That the extended editions, like if you're going to watch, you know, 10 hours of fantasy epic, you may as well make it 12. You may as well. It like all the extended scenes add to the story. There's nothing that really feels out of place or awkward in there. Like and even some bits, they had to completely be cut out of the theatrical edition. Like in the theatrical cuts, you never sort of see what happens to Saruman. He just is there at the end of the second film and then is gone in the third film. And there's so much like closure and levels and stuff like that. And I think that the big complaint of Lord of the Rings is that it takes about half an hour to finish. But I think that even that, with slightly longer and I feel like it almost becomes, I feel like the ending was intended to be a character arc of its own, and it works in the extended edition. I think there's no other way to watch it.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Lord of the Rings? Just out of curiosity.
No, it's all one. It's like saying, what's your favorite episode of a TV show? It's like there's.
Well, I could do that.
Yeah.
No, because episodes don't work without. It's basically one story. I couldn't like.
Okay.
Or it'd be like saying, what's your favorite third of a film? Like, but the first act sets up the third act, and the second act builds to the third act.
I mean, I would happily take out the Two Towers. Yeah, I rewatched them all last year around this time. I think just hanging into exam periods to kill the time, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just get so bored watching the Two Towers, which is a shame because I actually quite like Fellowship of the Ring, especially when you're going to have to forgive me, I can't remember any of the names, but the horse people, the shadowy horse people are like chasing them and they're like hiding. I love that. I think the aesthetic and the sort of feel of it is brilliant. And when they go into the little like bar where they meet him. I'm so bad at this. But you know what I mean? The one does not simply walk into Mordor guy.
I should have had, in the game we did last week, I should have had you do Lord of the Rings.
Like, I honestly have such a bad memory when it comes to Lord of the Rings, because I think we watched all of them when I was about 4 or 5, and I really enjoyed them then. And then, like, I think I've seen the first one quite a few times because I tried to, like, rewatch all of them, and then I just, like, watched the first one and it's like, oh, that was long. And then never get any further because they're all, like, 3 hours long each. Yeah. I feel like I've made new enemies today.
Only how many people are watching?
I suppose my alternative cut isn't much better. My favorite one is the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman.
I was gonna get onto Snyder.
Yeah, which I don't think a lot of people have seen, but it's one of those things that's sort of like, I guess it's sort of like what you were saying, Devon. It's like, if you want 9 hours of something, why don't you opt for 12 hours of something, and just like make it really smooth. And that's sort of how I feel with Dawn of Justice, like the Ultimate Edition of it. If you don't like the tone or the mood or anything of or the style of the theatrical cut, I don't think the extended edition is going to make it better for you. But the half hour sort of really smooths out a lot of the character development, and like especially Lois Lane, and practically like adds her back into the film. And it's really important, the whole like her whole investigation, because like Lex Luthor doesn't explain his plan in the film. It's all done through Lois Lane and how her investigation pieces everything back together again, and sort of how she sees it all. But by this, yeah, just like a little too late. It's just like a great arc. I think it's it's definitely one of my favorite superhero films, which I know is very unpopular, but the Ultimate Edition's really like saved it for me.
That movie where Lois Lane says, "I'm not a girl, I'm a journalist."
I can't remember.
I think it is that film.
It's either that one or Man of Steel. I am not sure.
Is that what you say, Alex?
That's what Jerry says, which is
I can't remember.
Sorry.
No, go.
I was going to say that, yeah, Zack Snyder is one of those people, and we've talked about this many times, I think, but he just can't
Yeah.
But you can't construct a narrative for a theatrical film. And I feel like one of the ones that, he doesn't really get mentioned when you talk about Zack Snyder, and a lot of people absolutely despise it, is Sucker Punch, which
Alex has
is...
seen that.
I love that movie.
That's a film which I saw and I was like, that was fun, but what? And then like a year later I saw a deleted scene on YouTube and I was like, but that's the point of the film. Why would they remove that? There's
it's you're not supposed to, it's not supposed to be obvious.
But it's such a lovely scene. It's so like smooth and just it's
like
really
a thriller. You watch it after watching the movie.
But yeah, you've seen Sucker Punch?
I haven't. I think I've been meaning to. I think it's been on Prime for a while, and so like this seems like an interesting film. I was really caught off guard that night at Spoons when Alex told me about Sucker Punch. I think it was the same night we went to see Birds of Prey, and she was like, I really like Sucker Punch. And I was like, what? Like, I can't really, I'm not dissing it because I haven't seen it, but it's just really not the sort of film I thought Alex would like. And then you kept insisting the music's really good. And I don't doubt that, but like, it was just really funny. It was like, it's not like really sexist and everything. Like, oh yeah, but the music.
The best part is that the music is horribly edited, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's definitely it's one of those films that I feel is far better in like concept than it is in execution. It's really interesting if you had a conversation about it. Yeah. And then if you watch it, it's very much Zack Snyder's taken that conversation and he's put like his 300 head on and he's made a psychological thriller using the same tools that he used to make 300, which is a lot of skin, a lot of slow-mo, and not much psychological thriller. It's weird.
I was gonna actually bring it up for Fractured Timelines.
Have you guys watched his director's cut of Watchmen? There's two of these actually. There's two cuts of.
I haven't. No.
Where it's like 3 hours long, and then he also did like an animated film, and then he stuck that onto it as well. So it's all just like a 5 hour long film with like an hour of animation in between it.
I've seen the director's cut. I haven't seen the ultimate one with like the animated midsection. No.
What's the director's cut like? I've only seen the like theatrical cut.
I don't think I've ever seen the theatrical, so I don't really know the difference. But I really like Watchmen. I think it has its flaws, but it's really bold and committed.
Yeah,
I really like that.
No, I was quite entertained by Watchmen. But I was also going through my angsty phase when watching it, so it's really good for that sort of thing.
I think Zack Snyder is permanently in an angsty phase.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Does anyone ever truly grow out their teen angst phase? No. Like, I feel like it's just something that gets left behind.
I'm wearing a My Chemical Romance shirt right now.
No.
I really want to watch the alternative cut to Dr. Sleep, which has its own original music and everything, like it was planned while they were still making the film. And it turns out it's limited edition on Blu-ray, so now I need to act fast. But yeah.
I'll just quickly mention also Kingdom of Heaven is one of those films where you sort of only watch the director's cut. It just... The theatrical cut, which I've never seen, I've heard is so abysmal that you just have to. And also Aliens, that has... I was going to mention it in the deleted scene section, but there's a lot of great scenes added to Aliens in the director's cut, but especially there's a scene where Ripley meets her daughter, Or no, she meets her granddaughter, or it might be great-granddaughter, because of course she was in like cryosleep, and then she was just left to drift at the end of Alien. So at the start of Aliens, she like is woken up by the corporation that find her body, and her daughter is dead, and her granddaughter is older than her, and it's just a really sort of interestingly existential scene that you wouldn't expect at the very start of one of the seminal action films of all time.
I didn't know a director's cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, check that out. Right, next section. So going back to Scooby-Doo, a couple of weeks ago, James Gunn, he actually started his career writing the Scooby-Doo films, revealed what the plans were for Scooby-Doo 3, which would see the mystery guy, being hired by a town in Scotland to investigate supernatural there. Only to find out that it was the monsters and the supernatural that are being discriminated against, or victimized rather, by the town. And Scooby and Shaggy have to put aside their prejudices to save the day, the supernatural prejudices. And I want to see this film now.
It sounds like a Disney feel-good movie. Why?
Did they make this into an animation?
I think what happened. I think they've done a Loch Ness Monster one, because they did these prequels where it had like a new cast and all, and they were sort of direct to video. One of them was Loch Ness Monster, and then I think they also had like an animated film that was also Loch Ness Monster. But this would be sort of different.
Would it have been the cast of like Sarah Michelle Gellar and everything?
Yeah, that was the plan originally. Yeah, Guy and myself, they were so well cast. So of those like great franchises where everyone was like perfect. Of course, Matthew Millard has been voicing Shaggy for years now in the animation.
Well, not in the latest.
No, not in Scoob. And we won't forget it.
I was at London Comic Con last year, and I went to a panel with him, and it was very interesting because it was like he was very. With the whole Scoob thing, they sort of went completely behind his back to cut him out. He didn't know about the film until the press release was released that like whatever his face is that was like voicing Scooby-Doo, voicing Shaggy, sorry. And he never got a correspondence from the studio being like, by the way, you are no longer Shaggy.
That's bad.
And it was weird watching him basically sort of have a bit of an existential crisis on stage in front of a crowd of 200 people, where he sort of was talking about kind of the hardships of acting, and he's only sort of just realizing that he no longer has a steady gig, and that he's sort of fending for himself now. It was very strange.
So have they cut him off the TV show as well?
I don't know. I don't know if they're still making it.
Because I know they have a current series out, which is sort of like the Scooby-Doo movies, if anyone remembers that, where they just get like a special guest on every week. And I think he's still voicing that. I thought the idea was that they just didn't want him to do the film because he wasn't a bankable name. But then I can't remember who's voicing Shaggy anyway, so I don't think anyone here's what you'd call a bankable name, other than Zac Efron, maybe, for Fred.
But I was going to mention it before, by the way, but apparently that film's awful. Apparently that's why, one of the reasons why it was pushed straight to VOD, because it is expected to get terrible reviews.
Oof.
Yeah.
Right, well, do you guys have any other cancelled films that you wish weren't or had seen?
Well, I have some that I wish they weren't cancelled, and some that I'm thankful for them being cancelled. Which one do you want first?
Ones you want to see.
I would like to see, apparently, the Who Framed Roger Rabbit. was gonna have a prequel that was called Who Discovered Roger Rabbit, and they canceled it, and I'm very sad. That I would watch that. I love Roger Rabbit. And the one that I'm thankful is for E.T. 2.
Oh my god. I hate E.T. I really truly do hate that. I don't hate the film, I hate how he looks, which is so mean, but it's true.
No, it's terrifying.
At least you agree with me. What do you two think about E.T.'s design, Peter?
Dated, but otherwise inoffensive. You know, like I don't look. I go, ugh.
I think it's fine. I mean, I'm not a Spielberg fan, so I'm not really a fan of the film, but it's okay, I think. Yeah.
Alex, do you know anything about, like, was it going to be a sequel, did you say, rather than a prequel?
Yeah. The E.T. one was going to be a sequel. It was going to be Elliot and his friends were going to be captured or kidnapped by a group of aliens who were going to search for him and his friends. And it was going to be very gory. And like apparently the kids were going to even get like blackout from the pain and stuff. And E.T. had to go and save him. Or, well, the group of friends.
I want to watch this. It's really great. It actually puts me in the mind of It.
I
don't really know why. Also, like, if I could change it so that it's E.T. doing this, I think that would be
E.T. versus
really
IT.
Oh my god, yes. I need that crossover.
Give me the crossover we all deserve.
Talking about crossovers, I completely forgot about this until you said that, but there was going to be the Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover.
Oh yes! Oh my god!
I completely forgot about that until now. Yeah. Made by Phil and Lord Miller. Phil Lord Miller, those two, the ones who did Spider-Verse and Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street and all those ones. And they were going to do a crossover with Men in Black, and it just sounded brilliant.
And then turned into Men in Black International.
Less brilliant.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. That was in development for ages.
Yeah, I think they had a script and it was like actors were attached. They were ready to go.
Yeah, like 22 Jump Street was 2014 or so it must have been, oh wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh,
wow. I know. Cancelled sequels, spin-offs, prequels.
I had quite a fun time researching this. One that I found was going to be a sequel to 7. Have you guys heard of this? I know.
No.
It was 8. You know anything about it, Peter?
No, I just sort of guessed that it was going to be called 8. Was it actually going to be called 8?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
E-I and then 8 and then H-T. So, yeah. New Line Cinema, which was the company that made 7, wanted to continue 7's success, but Fincher didn't want to do it. Interestingly enough, this is a direct quote from this article that I found. Interestingly enough, the movie was made in 2015 with its original title, Solace. Have you guys ever heard of that? I've never heard of it.
Right.
And it had Anthony Hopkins and Jeffrey Dean Morgan in it, as in Walking Dead Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was torn apart by critics. So it's probably, and this is a quote, so it's probably a good thing that 8 never found its way out of the box. Wah, wah, wah.
Damn film journalists.
Yeah, Peter.
We try.
Peter, right there.
This is how we make the moolah.
No, go on. Sorry, Devon. Go on.
No. Okay, I've got a lot. All of Zack Snyder's Justice League stuff. I would love to see, just because it was gonna be so ambitious, and it's the kind of thing that I wanted to see how it would work. Because the way it was gonna be was Justice League the one we got was going to be about Steppenwolf, and it kind of introduces Steppenwolf, and he was sent by Darkseid. Peter, you know comics, so you probably know the names better.
Big bad.
To attack Earth. And at the end of Justice League, the Justice League would have been able to track Darkseid from defeating Steppenwolf. Then Justice League Part 2 was going to be the Justice League going to space and like fighting Darkseid in space. And like it was basically going to be a intergalactic thing with Batman in a spaceship and everyone else zipping about and stuff like that. And then they were going to get back to Earth where Darkseid had got to, and it was basically going to be a post-apocalyptic film where the third film was like ended on the second film ended on the cliffhanger of they get back to Earth and it's destroyed, and then the third film is them in a post-apocalyptic Earth fighting Darkseid, and it just sounded interesting. I don't know if it'll be good, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, funny you should mention this because there are an animated film's coming out sometime in May. It's Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, and I think they're really taking that premise where they decide to take down Darkseid once and for all and go to Apocalypse, and then when they come back, they find out, oh, half of the world's dead, essentially. Yeah, no, I think that would be great. And I think the rumor is at the minute is that the Snyder cut of the first Justice League film is going to be available on HBO Max at some point, is what they're hoping to work out.
I've heard differently. I've heard that was the rumor about a week ago, but since then, an inside person from Warner has revealed that basically Warner are really sort of annoyed that Zack Snyder keeps teasing the Snyder cut, because like they weren't planning to do it, and then they actually did meet with him and say like, hey, we don't want this, but you're making such a thing and you've got so many fans and we don't really understand, so how much money do you need? And I think I've got the article. He said that he needed 20 million to finish it, $20 million, and they were like, nope. So apparently it's not happening. Yeah.
Oh
well. I don't know what is salvageable. I mean, the fact that they reshot 80% of the film means that so little of Zack Snyder's VFX and stuff would have been done. Yeah.
I'd honestly just like take out the red filter as one of the first things I would have done. It's so ugly. And you can see it, and it's so sad because you can see it even in the older trailers that they've reshot things and it looks worse than it did in the first trailer. Especially, like, I think Ben Affleck probably started to gain weight by the time of the reshoots due to alcoholism, and you can see that in his face. It's actually quite sad.
Yeah.
Did you have any others, sir?
I have one or two.
You go first.
Okay. The big one that made me laugh is the Raimi's fourth Spider-Man movie.
Oh, that was going to be one of my ones.
Well, I mean, you can explain it more than I can. Mine was the only little thing I sort of. There's quite a lot of discussion surrounding it, like on articles and stuff, and I couldn't really be bothered to sort of like properly delve into it. But I sort of tried to figure out why it didn't happen, because I always just thought, and like anyone I knew who was my friend who really liked the movie as well, like the Raimi trilogy, well, two of the Raimi films, like really liked it, was because like people had all these conspiracy theories about, oh my gosh, the reason that Raimi made the third one kind of rubbish is because he didn't like the fact that the studio was telling him to do this, so he purposefully made it bad, and that's why there wasn't a fourth one, because he didn't want to do it the way that they wanted to do it. But like, and as much as like I think that's a lovely like convoluted idea, it's just not really like the only things I could find out for sure about it were things like, would it really be that successful because people like James Franco weren't going to be returning and stuff, like, because obviously of the events of the previous movie, and like I think Kirsten Dunst never officially like signed on for it or something along those kinds of lines. But anyway, the thing I found out for certain was that Raimi like hated the scripts that were written for it. So yeah, but you can go on, Peter, and say anything else that you might know about it.
Well, first of all, I love Spider-Man 3, and it's my favorite one in the trilogy. I'm just going to leave that out there.
When we were in one time, I was in a class, and like the teacher, like to make us like mark down that we were in the lesson, said like, oh, just write down your favorite, I don't know, superhero movie, like put your name in your favorite superhero movie, and I put Spider-Man 2, and then the person next to me went, I was gonna pick that, and then put Spider-Man 3. But go on.
So Spider-Man 4, the villain, at least it was rumored was going to be Mysterio. And if you guys know, Sam Raimi did this little franchise called Evil Dead, which starred a little actor called Bruce Campbell, who appears in all of the Raimi films.
Oh my god, of course he does.
And then the third one, you can see him, he plays like a chauffeur at the theater. And the idea was that this character was going to turn into Mysterio, who did all of the theatrical props and sort of illusions and stuff and based around that. So it's been seeded in, and I just really want to see that. I would love to sort of see that sort of development. I think that would be like, I don't want to ruin it, but I think Far From Home does like a similar kind of twist, but it doesn't work because he's not planted in throughout the rest of the franchise. But this would have like really, I think it would have been great. And I know Raimi always wanted Kristen Dunst to have a bigger sort of like not damsel in distress part, and I think that could have been it. I think that's why she didn't sort of sign on officially for Spider-Man 4, was because she was promised this in Spider-Man 3. And then that didn't happen. She's sort of like a damsel in distress by the end of Venom-ish sort of thing. We'll call it Venom. Is it ever called Venom in the film? I don't think so.
I don't know actually. They just call him the symbiote thing, right?
Yeah.
And what's the character called? The one, like, what's he called? I can't remember the guy who is Venom in like the movie.
Eddie Brock.
Eddie Brock, that's it. Yeah, I think I just call him Eddie. He's just like, Eddie, stop. I think that's.
I've also got a Spider-Man 1. That is both a film that I am very glad wasn't made and a film that I would absolutely see. So obviously Sony makes Spider-Man. They made the first 3 Spider-Men films. Yeah. They made Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. Raimi didn't want to do 4. It all sort of dissolved. They still needed to keep making Spider-Man films. They need to make one every 2-3 years to keep the license so that it doesn't fall back to Marvel. So after Spider-Man 4 fell apart, they had to quickly build a new one. And they did so with Andrew Garfield. And we have the Amazing Spider-Man series, which was meant to be a trilogy. So they made the first one kind of quickly, and it did very well. And then they got very excited because Sony really liked money, and that got a lot of money, especially Sony back then. So they were like, Marvel's got a bunch of films. Let's make our own cinematic universe of Spider-Man films. But there's not that much for Spider-Man. So the films that they had like in the pipeline when Spider-Man 2 was about to come out, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, was about to come out, they had a Venom movie in the pipeline that eventually, many years later, emerged. They had a Sinister Six movie, which was going to be sort of, once Venom had come out, they would immediately go into the Sinister Six. I think they're still planning to do that down the line because they've got Morbius. Maybe? Yeah,
it seems like with Morbius and Adrian Toomes appears in the trailer.
Yeah. So they might still have that coming up. Obviously, they would have had The Amazing Spider-Man 3 in development, and they had an all-female Spider-Man movie too, which they were going to put into development. But the one which I think is just brilliant is that they were going to have an Aunt May film.
Oh my god, yes, I remember.
Genuinely, they were going to do an Aunt May film. It was going to be a prequel. She was going to be a spy. It was going to be a thriller. It was going to have Sally Fields as Aunt May. It was like...
I mean, this is basically what they've done with Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah.
is that they've given him like a military background, and now he has a show of when he was not a butler but a spy.
But even then, he's more of like, at least he's a bodyguard.
Yeah.
At least there's some connection instead of just Aunt May.
I mean, I think with Aunt May, because in The Amazing Spider-Man it builds up in the second one that his Peter Parker's parents are part of some sort of like military scientist sort of thing. It's not really explained enough to really know what their research is. I think it's something to do with DNA and spiders from the first one. So maybe it's that, because I think is Aunt May related to Peter's parents? I can't remember how. Well, probably not. It was probably the dad, if they're still called Parker.
I think, isn't she the sister of the mom?
Yeah, but like I think it's May Parker and Ben Parker, and then he's Peter Parker, so it's probably Ben.
Sister of the dad.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, it could be something like that, like a family spy. Oh my god, that sounds so sad. Family spy film.
It sounds so good though. I'd
watch it.
It says they wanted it to be an espionage story in the vein of AMC's Mad Men. So kind of that very sort of.
Why did they cancel it?
Because Amazing Spider-Man 2 did really badly and everyone hated it, and they were like, Marvel, hello.
I remember that.
Yeah, everyone does.
But I don't want to say they could have saved it if they did an unmade movie, but they would have saved it.
That would have been the ultimate comeback story, is the entire Spider-Man franchise being saved by Aunt May in the 80s.
Yeah, and people love the 80s at the moment, so
yeah.
Please, Sony, do an anime espionage movie, please.
Every time you guys say it, it sounds like you're saying anime espionage movie, and
anime. We've got it, guys. Get Hollywood on the line.
They sort of gave that role to Aunt May in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And they're still planning on doing a Spider-Woman film as a spin-off with like Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, and Silk, who is called Cindy Moon. She's quite a new character, I think. God, I can't wait for all of this.
Wow, so they still do have all of those films in development apart from Aunt May. That was the only one that got properly cancelled.
What?
No, we don't know. She could get her own like little animated TV show. They're planning quite a lot of them.
No! Don't give us an anime
No.
or TV show. We want a long saga of Aunt May being a spy. I want it with like 5 movie part saga. I won't take less of that.
Yes. I can't wait for Aunt May Endgame.
An Avengers level threat.
I want to like into the Mayverse or into the Aunt Mayverse, and then we'll get the actresses back from like the Sam Raimi trilogy,
Yes.
and they also like meet together. Oh my god. I've got one more. It's a little film. I think it's called Batman Triumphant, which is what was going to be the sequel to Batman and Robin before it was considered to be one of the worst films of all time. But, you know, it's okay. So Batman Triumphant was going to see the first live-action appearance of Harley Quinn. But she was going to be imagined a little bit differently. She was going to be the Joker's daughter, who was avenging, spoilers, his death in the previous Batman anthology films. And she was going to be teaming up with Scarecrow to take down Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. And I don't know why, but I just really want to see this film. I have no expectation of it being good, but I really want Joel Schumacher to direct it.
How would it work though? It sounds really weird in terms of like the universe and the, I don't know, line of what Batman and the and Harley Quinn and the Joker is. I'm very confused.
Yeah, well, they do this sometimes where they take a character and then like it's everything but a name. Like they did it with Batgirl. She's not Commissioner Gordon's daughter in the film. She's Alfred's niece from England, but I think she still has an American accent or something like that. Yeah, so she's like Barbara something else, like Barbara Woodrow or Barbara Wilson. I think it's Barbara Wilson. You know, these are like unnecessary changes that I never get in films. They did it with Black Manta as well. They like changed his name from Daniel to David. And I was like, right, okay, but why? You know, they just seem like really unnecessary adaptations. But yeah, I just sort of want to see that film. I love the Joel Schumacher ones. So good. So, last bit before we get to the game. Sometimes the actors don't quite make it through their part and they need to be replaced. It's weird when you go back to the old ones thinking that person was him. But yeah, it happened. So, best and worst recast in films.
The one I didn't have written down, but the one you just immediately reminded me of is Rachel Weisz being like changed in the Mummy series. That's like, you know, like how Peter's pulled a face. It's like, Rachel Weisz is in the first two movies, but not in the third one.
Oh, that's okay. I've only seen the first two films, and that's like, I watched the second one, and it wasn't her.
Not the same thing. No, that was just a small one. But the one that I think is genuinely it's kind of like it's like a debate sparking thing, but I do think is interesting because the one I had noted down was Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs. Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, was replaced by Julianne Moore in the sequel Hannibal, which is directed by Ridley Scott, so it's very like different. And I looked up like why it was that she didn't join it, so do you want me to like say, or shall we just I'm kind of intrigued.
I'm interested.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I'm obviously interested to know if you guys have seen both of those movies as well, what you think of her, because I know there's a lot of like people who really hate Julianne Moore in that movie, and there's some people who sort of think like, she's fine. So the thing I looked up was that I did some digging as to why she denied the role, and David Mamet was removed from Hannibal because Foster reportedly disliked his screenplay. This guy, like David Mamet, wrote it, which, like the novel, sees Starling indulging in cannibalism after being brainwashed by Lecter. So that's how the second film would have ended if they had have kept it like the book, which is something apparently a lot of the fans of the book were really uncomfortable with anyway. Like even fans weren't happy with that. It was hoped that she would change her mind when director Ridley Scott came on board and hired Schindler's List scribe Steve Zallan, Z-A-I-L-L-A-N, to rewrite the screenplay with a changed ending, which I found out from The Guardian. But considering the book ended with Clarice and Hannibal actually becoming lovers, a plot hated by many of the fans of both characters, one imagines that anything similar in an earlier script would have put Foster off. Thankfully, Ridley Scott ended up rejecting the cannibalism ending and got a new one written for the film. But ultimately, according to this guy called Dino De Laurentiis, I think he was a producer on the film, Hannibal, said that Foster asked for an unreasonably high salary to return, and that was ultimately why she denied it. But I think she seemed to have been initially put off by the sort of like demoting of the character to become this sort of like almost like copy of Lecter, not copy, but sort of like subversion of him.
Yeah.
Kind of like the whole very similar sort of like female character, well not similar, but sort of in the vein of what we're talking about with Kirsten Dunst being sort of like told she was going to be a certain thing and then not, and Jodie Foster as Clarice having such this powerful feminine presence in the Silence of the Lambs. I can imagine it probably felt like quite a betrayal of the character to have her change in such a big way.
Yeah, oh, that's really interesting actually. I was sort of like, I enjoy Silence of the Lambs, but I've never watched any of the other ones because I couldn't tell how they fit together. Like, I always forget which one's a sequel or a prequel, and if this shares continuity with this or not. And the changing of actors doesn't make it easier. I sort of just need to like look out for Anthony Hopkins in the preview to know if it's in the same continuity. But that doesn't matter anymore, I don't think. If an actor is the same, they can go between continuities at times.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking of Silence of the Lambs and Jodie Foster. I don't know. I got lost in thought. Mine is well, I'm pretty sure people realize this and we're kind of like, what? But I have two from Harry Potter. The first one is Lavender Brown. That's the name of the characters. I don't ask me about the actors, please. But she, in the first movies, she was portrayed by a black actress, and suddenly when she had to play the love interest of Ron Weasley, she was changed by a white actress, and a whole debate sparked into, why did you do this? Because it makes absolutely no sense. And the sense that it makes, it's not good because, but the production, like the casting, justified it as, oh, we casted as a black actress because the character is never described throughout the books until the sixth one, which I think it's the one she appears in for the first time as a important figure. She is defined as pale. Like, that's the whole definition of the character. To me, it's not enough to completely recast it. I don't think that's important. And if you also look back to other characters of Harry Potter, none of them are described in physical features. The only thing you know about Hermione Granger is that she has curly hair. That's why in the musical she is represented by a black actress, like, because they were like, we don't need to, and that. And in the last movie of all, one of Malfoy's friends, it's suddenly black. It's portrayed by a black actor, which completely debunks the first justification of Lavender Brown, because they used this. It was very weird.
Especially Harry Potter, where race is no part of that franchise at all.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's only one black actor, and that's the last actor, like the Malfoy's friend in the last movie. That's all.
And that one kid who looks at the ball and is like, "There's gonna be something." What is it, that quote that he says?
Which one?
The guy when there's the teacup and they see the thing and he's
yes,
something. I can't remember what he says, but that he there's him. I'm kidding.
Yeah, there's him,
but
and there's the girl who goes out with Cedric from Ravenclaw. She's Asian. That's it. The rest is white people.
What about Harry's love interest in Order of Phoenix?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. And what do you call Seamus's friend, who's like the announcer at Quidditch?
Yeah, but he's portrayed by a white actor all the way through. The same guy thing, isn't it?
No, like Seamus's friend's portrayed by a black actor. Because I remember, because I sort of know him better as an adult actor. He was on How to Get Away with Murder for a while as one of the leads.
That's
and I researched
true.
it, and yeah.
And they changed him, yeah. Didn't they? Yeah.
I think they kept him the same all the way. Well, I don't know. I actually haven't seen it in ages. I'm not really one to say.
I only remember about Blassie or whatever his name was and Lavender Brown, because those were like very shocking for everyone.
Yeah. Jeez. No, I never noticed that. I just don't really notice the side characters in Harry Potter a lot of the time. Or I might see them and then think that they're a different character whenever they're brought up later on.
That was the problem with the last scene in the Malfoy's friend one, because there were a lot of memes about that, because you don't see the guy for the whole movie, and the only scene you see him in is the last one. And suddenly they're calling him Blassie or whatever his name is, and you're like, wait, it's been 7 movies and that's not the guy. 7 movies in, and you recast him. It was just nuts.
This reminds me of The Room, where they recast the psychiatrist friends. It's really hard to pick up on because they don't call him by his name. And it's like, oh my god! Did you guys realize that that was meant to be the guy from the start?
No,
when you're watching The Room.
No.
Okay, because that's what it's like, but on like a franchise level. Where you just sort of like suddenly make this change and then act as if it was completely normal. Devon, favorite worst recasts?
I've got two. One of them, best is a bit of an overstatement, but I much preferred Maggie Gyllenhaal playing what's the dark
Katie Holmes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my one as well.
Yeah, I feel like Katie Holmes was so sort of off in that whole film. She just seems like she's in a different film, or playing a different way to every other actor in that. And then suddenly Maggie Gyllenhaal is just like gets what Nolan does and is immediately in line with that tone and that kind of momentum and that kind of style of storytelling.
She's such a great actress. I think she's quite underappreciated in Hollywood. And I think her involvement in that film as a whole, her and Aaron Eckhart, I think are the two most underrated performers in that film.
Yeah.
They're just like overshadowed by everybody else. It's really sad.
And the other one I was going to say, best and worst is not really a way to put it, but it's just such a weird recast of Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo in the Hulk, because they're both so entirely different. I assume that you didn't like Edward Norton and like Mark Ruffalo, Alex. I assume that but
yeah,
it's just like Mark Ruffalo is a human teddy bear. Like in every way, he is just a big teddy bear that somehow managed to walk and is just sort of blending in. Edward Norton is the complete opposite of that. He's just like this egotistical flesh rage, and he just like storms about. And yeah, I mean, obviously, they had to get a Hulk to mesh with all the other actors, and Mark Ruffalo is definitely the one for that. Because yeah, if you put Edward Norton next to Robert Downey Jr., then they're basically playing the same character.
Yeah.
So you have to have Mark Ruffalo to be the other very smart, kind of well-off person who does science and turns into strong, powerful. But yeah, it just was very, very strange as a transition. Yeah. I can see why a lot of people don't really see The Incredible Hulk as a Marvel film.
It's just so weird. I think also having Mark Ruffalo as such a different, he plays a very different part from the actual Hulk, like the creature it is. They need very like contrasting points. And the guy that played it in The Incredible Hulk, it was just like, oh, he just gets more angry.
Yeah.
Was a good choice. I like it.
I do feel like Mark Ruffalo, I feel like he needs to play off other people. I feel like his Hulk as a character isn't a character that I could see carrying a standalone film in any way.
No, I couldn't.
But yeah, Edward Norton, it's got that bit more depth, whereas Mark Ruffalo, it doesn't need that depth because it's about the concoction of him with everyone else.
But I think he could do it. I think and I am one of the people who think that they should do another Hulk movie, but with Mark Ruffalo, just because Incredible Hulk is not part of the MCU. But I think it could stand. I think he could do a good job.
Okay.
I think the main reason they haven't been doing more Hulk films is because its rights are tied up with Universal. So they don't really get the money for it or a sizable amount of it, and they don't have the same deal that they do with Sony over Spider-Man. And so I think that's part of the sort of She-Hulk idea of the TV show, is that they do own the rights to her, and then they can put like him and the supporting cast into the She-Hulk show, and so like grow them that way. And it's why the Hulk's been in everything, or in like Ragnarok and all, because they want to try to create like a storyline, but they can't make solo films to do that storyline for him. I don't like his storyline. I'm just going to say it. I thought it was really unsatisfying in Endgame.
Well, it's because it happens off screen.
Yeah, exactly.
He completes his character arc in between two films, and like, you just get none of it.
Yeah, it is. So like it was 3 films of going through the same stage of that character development. Then the 5-year gap in Endgame, and it's like, I figured it out. It's
yeah.
Like a wee that and their explanation for time travel.
Yeah.
Will never cease to annoy me in Endgame. It's sort of like, that's not an explanation.
No.
It was really interesting because sort of outside the film world, The Last of Us 2 has just been leaked online, and people are discussing plot spoilers. Oh, if you're a fan of The Last of Us, be very, very careful, because there are Last of Us 2 spoilers everywhere online right now, and there will be for the next month. But a lot of people are talking about the leaks, and obviously having the plot written out in bullet points is very different to having it like experiencing it, and comparing the reaction of like the leaks to Endgame and what people thought about the leaks to Endgame compared to the actual audience reactions of the film. It's very interesting. Like people were saying this is an absolute disaster, it's going to flop, it ruined Captain America's character arc, it's ruined Tony Stark's, it's ruined Thor's, which I think his character is like the best part of that film, easily. And yeah, it was a very interesting thread. I'll send it to you guys if you're interested. But yeah, just seeing what people thought of just the raw, this is what happens in the story, compared to actually seeing it on screen.
Definitely. I have another one from the MCU, and it's another one of these like early films that I don't think anyone remembers with somebody else. But in the first Iron Man, Tony Stark's trusty friend Rhodes was played by Terrence Howard and not Don Cheadle. And honestly, they couldn't be more different actors, especially when it comes to like physically. Like Terrence Howard's huge, and then Don Cheadle's like a little bit more like nimble and so. Oh my god! And it's one of these things where it's like, I don't think Terrence Howard's bad in Iron Man. Like, it's a really good film, and he's a fine part in it. But Don Cheadle is just so much better, I think. Is it War Machine they're calling him, or is it Iron Patriot?
I think War Machine. Yeah.
War Machine is the guy from Iron Man, and then Patriot is the guy from the Shield guy, Captain America.
Is it?
Isn't
Did
it?
they not call? I thought the idea was that Rhodes was War Machine
hold on,
initially, and then they were like, "Oh wait, that sounds too violent or sort of like too military-esque."
Like, they rebranded.
Yeah, so they rebranded him Iron Patriot.
You're right.
But wait, did they rebrand him in universe?
Yeah, I think.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's an in-universe thing in the comics. I can't remember if it's in the universe. I feel like it is. So I think there's a little not a throwaway gag, but like a little joke between him and Iron Man in the 3rd film. Maybe is he in the 3rd film? Yeah, okay, he's in the 3rd film. I honestly can't remember. Rhodes states that the US government deemed War Machine to be too militaristic, while the red, white, and blue Iron Patriot tested well with focus groups. Sorry, trivia.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels so much better.
Terrence Howard as a character is just like I don't really know that much about him, but the little bits I've heard, it was like soon after Iron Man 2 had come out, and like people were starting to find out what had actually happened, and he had said that he would deserve to be paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for Iron Man 2 because his character and his part was integral to the Iron Man story. And it was just about that time also that he had come out with this. He was talking about how he had discovered a new type of mathematics where 1 × 1 = 2, and it Like, I went down a rabbit hole. It was weird.
I never heard about that.
Yeah.
Was he on drugs?
I do not know. He may have been on ego.
Iron Man 2 is one of those weird films where, like, it's the debut of a lot of significant characters, but you just won't forget it. Like,
That's the first Black Widow, right?
yeah, it introduces Black Widow, and then I guess it re-debuts Rhodes in this sort of sense by recasting him and changing him a wee bit. I didn't see Iron Man 2 before I watched Avengers, and I'm really glad, because Black Widow's debut in Avengers is so much better than her debut in Iron Man 2. Where, like, it just presents a much better sort of image of Black Widow, because in the second one it's sort of very like, oh, look how hot she is, and look how she can, like, flip Jon Favreau while still being really skinny.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that Joss Whedon does something entirely different in the Avengers, but it's better.
Yeah.
She is also scantily clad and flips over a man, but you know.
Yeah, but you know, it's better.
Yeah.
Right. So, do you guys want to play a game?
I don't know.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Should we reveal the thing that you sent us, the film?
Yes. So I've sent everybody a film, and the film that I sent them is somebody else's favorite film on the chat. Basically, what I will prove here tonight is that no matter what happens, there is always a darker timeline. So the people that have received their film are going to recast that film, whether or not they've seen that film, while the other people watch. Would you guys like to reveal your films?
Do we have to? Are we not? Yeah. Do we have to? We're revealing the films that you've given to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll go first. I got Barton Fink, which is a film that I've been meaning to see for a long time, but I haven't. And I was like, ooh, Barton Fink, I guess I should, because I know nothing about this film. I'll look it up. And I watched the trailer, and I still knew nothing about the film, and I was very confused. So I went onto Wikipedia, and I read the first half of the plot, and I'm still very confused. I still don't know what that film's about. So yes, this is going to be interesting.
Mine is a little known film, Gone Girl.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Have you?
I have seen this, luckily.
Nice.
Alex?
Mine was really easy, but I still had to look at the trailer because I had forgotten. Mine was The Dark Knight.
Nice.
Mine was Big Fish, which is a Tim Burton film that I've been meaning to watch but haven't. So I'm going to try to recast people without knowing. Does anyone want to volunteer?
I may need some prep time.
Yeah, same.
I will butcher the movie with the cast that I've chosen.
See,
This is what we're aiming for here.
I've got people on the brain at the moment because I talked to Angus last night. We were trying to recast the Avengers as teens. If we were gonna have like a teen Avengers movie, and I've got Florence Pugh on the brain because I thought Florence Pugh would be a good Black Widow, but that's
Well,
probably...
she's going to be the next Black Widow.
Yeah, yeah, that's why. And then Angus was like, "But isn't she going to be in the next movie?" And I'm like, "Shh, it's fine." 100 hottest blonde actresses. IMDb. Okay. I always think that what the heck is her name in Moulin Rouge and in Sleep film? What's that called? Before I go to sleep, I'm gonna look it up.
Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always think, I mean, like, as much as Gone Girl, like, she's kind of the wrong age now because, like, she's a touch too old for it now. She is always very good at this sort of, like, she's got these very good micro expressions. And I suppose one of the points of, what's the actress who plays the main girl in Gone Girl?
Rosamund Pike.
That's the one. As much as part of, like, her acting is a lot of like not giving away what you're feeling, but you can see it in her micro expressions. I do think that Nicole Kidman could possibly do that quite well, but she's a touch old for it now. But that would be my recasting for that main character in God Girl. I'm trying to think what the man would be though. I could see somebody like really cringeworthy, like really cringingly, like, because you know how there's that poster, like the sort of still image from the film that's like Ben Affleck sort of going.
Yeah.
It needs to be someone who's a bit cringy and a bit slimy in that way, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Give me a minute to think. You guys go.
I've got mine written down.
Ooh.
Go ahead.
Go for it, Alex.
I had to go. I must say, I am terrible with actors. You guys know this. So I had to go through a list of the top 500 actors to recast this. So I've got for Batman, I chose Diesel Washington.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
For Alfred, I chose Robert De Niro. And this is what I feel it's going to be controversial. I chose for Joker, Tim Roth, because I feel like he could do a fantastic job at being crazy.
Oh. Yeah, I see that.
That's all I got, because I was thinking about who to cast for the other bad guy, but I just couldn't think of anyone. And the only person that it's Brad Pitt, but I just don't see it.
I could maybe do James McAvoy for Two-Face.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
No, McAvoy. Do you not see that? The guy who plays Professor X.
Yeah, that's the one. The Peter.
Oh, did he say that? I
Yeah.
did not understand that then. Sorry.
I mean, I'm probably like leaning in too close to what Nolan did, but I feel like Chris Evans could make a really good Two-Face, because he is such like a upstanding American, but he also has played baddies in the past.
Yeah.
I see him as too much of a goodie to play Two-Face.
I don't know,
In
because
Knives
like
Out, he was so like wonderfully slimy.
No, I didn't see him as slimy in fact, I thought that was the only cast decision that didn't fit their character. But I don't know. I think it's because after I saw him in Not Another American Teen Movie, I just lost all my respect for him as a serious actor. Not that he's bad. Not quite the opposite. Just I cannot see him in dramatic movies.
You guys know what Snowpiercer? That's a good movie with Chris Evans.
Need to.
There's a bit more of an edge to his character as well there. It's quite nice. I didn't prepare in advance. I haven't seen Big Fish. I didn't want to spoil too much of it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going through the cast and I'm looking at their roles. And some of them I'm just like recasting based on who I associate that actor with.
I am terrified.
So apparently Ewan McGregor plays the young version of Edward Bloom, and I always associate him with Hayden Christensen. So Hayden Christensen. Helen Bonham Carter plays the witch, and I don't know why I was thinking Elizabeth Moss. I don't really associate the two together. I just think Elizabeth Moss could be like a really good like witch-esque character.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's all the handmaid tale imagery and stuff around that, the sort of Puritan stuff. Billy Crudup as Will Bloom. I'm going to go for Jeffrey Dean Morgan because Billy Crudup was in Watchmen with him. So that. Can I do that or can I do Patrick Wilson? We'll go for Patrick Wilson. Alex doesn't know who Patrick Wilson is.
No,
but you've seen the Conjuring films.
Yeah, that's where you know him from.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah. I just really like Patrick Wilson. I think he needs to be in more
stupid,
things.
though. Well, Will's stupid as well, so yeah, I can see it.
I can't imagine Albert Finney as Edward Bloom, someone senior. He's on his deathbed, right?
Yeah, he's around 60s-ish.
Christopher Plummer, based on Knives Out.
Okay. Yeah, no, I
We'll go for
actually...
that. And then the rest I really just can't.
No
idea.
You're not recasting the best one.
What's the best one?
Blanche. The mother. The wife.
Sandra?
No, just Jessica Blanche. She's in American Horror Story.
I don't think I know her as an actress.
My heart.
Yeah, this is truly the darkest timeline. Kat?
Well, I've been like eating away at this. Right, I think I've come to the conclusion. I was almost going to recast this film to have the exact same cast as Before I Go to Sleep, which I'm thinking is now a slightly lesser brow version of kind of like what Gone Girl is.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just as like my first gut reactions to it. I'd keep Nicole Kidman, or if not Nicole Kidman, maybe Cate Blanchett. But I think Cate Blanchett's got too much of like a person. She's too sophisticated, and I know Rosamund Pike is sophisticated too. I completely get that. But something about watching Cate Blanchett in that role, as much as she's good at having this presence and this slightly like not scary but like powerful aura about her, I somehow don't really see her as like, don't know, something there, but maybe I'll stick with her for now. Cate Blanchett for now. I think that, and I do not think he's a slimy person, but I think he could possibly play slimy well, would be Keanu Reeves.
Oh.
Because as much as he comes across, everyone loves him, he's such a sweetie, and then it would be such like a turn to see him in a movie where he sort of becomes a little bit, you know. I think that could be kind of cool. And I'm really stuck with who to cast Patrick, what's he called? Neil Patrick Harris, his character as. I'm really quite stuck with that. For some reason, I'm really drawn to Don Cheadle, and I don't know why. Because like, I don't know what, because he doesn't scream like sophisticated, like, I don't know, obsessive dude, but I just think it can be quite, I don't know, something about him is like pulling him to me, and then if not him, but it doesn't seem classy enough. I was gonna say Jim Carrey, but I don't think that's right. It's just the kind of like funny comedic sort of energy that Neil Patrick Harris has, but that's something, I don't know. I find this one quite difficult because I feel like I'm basing it much more on like looks than I am basing it on like who would actually play the characters well. This is really tough.
You know, I was thinking for instead of Neil Patrick Harris, Sam Witwer.
Who's he?
I think he mainly does voice acting, but he does do live action roles because he was the main villain on Supergirl. But he voices Darth Maul now, and he was in a biker game last year.
Cool.
Or something. I can't remember what it's called. Days Gone, that was it.
Oh, right. Okay.
He plays the main character.
I've heard Days Gone's really good.
Yeah, but I felt like, I don't know, I think it could do sort of like the sophisticated, sort of quiet, menacing sort of type that's like quite, because like Neil Patrick Harris's character is like, he feels sexually violent in a way, and I can't remember if he ever does get sexually violent, but it's done in a way that you feel like he could at any minute. And I think Sam, no offense to Sam Witwer, but I do feel like he could sort of like pull off that kind of tension, where it's sort of like attractive enough, but like, and you don't feel like it's going to happen, but it could. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah.
Devon, I think you got the hardest one.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, Devon.
So, again, I don't know anything about this film, but going off the first half of the Wikipedia plot. Instead of where's the film gone? Wait, hold on. Just give me 2 seconds for me to get up the cast again. I think.
Please, everyone, go watch this movie.
It's been on my list for especially it's about a writer. Like I don't know why I haven't. So instead of John Turturro playing our titular character Barton Fink, I've got Shia LaBeouf.
Okay.
He's a up-and-coming playwright coming to Hollywood to write scripts for $1,000 a week. He settles down in a cheap hotel, and he's wrestling with his boss, who is Christopher Plummer, who you'll know from Knives Out and
Yes,
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, where he plays an older man who is working with the detective Daniel Craig.
Sorry, Christopher Plummer is in The Sound of Music.
Yeah, he's the dude.
Oh my god!
It's like his most famous role.
Yeah, but he's not young in that.
And it's really weird because they got someone else to sing over him, but there's audio of him actually singing Cradle By, and it's like really good. Yeah. Anyway, so meets Christopher Plummer, who's the slightly angry. Is he slightly angry boss? Slightly stern boss. It looked like from the trailer. He's at one point. There's some loud noises coming from the room next door, so he complains, and eventually the neighbor comes to apologize. And instead of John Goodman playing the neighbor, I've got Jon Favreau. Just kind of a lovely, chummy, everyone likes him dude. Oh no, was that bad?
I cannot. If I saw him act the way that John Goodman acts, I would be really frightened.
Oh no. Oh no. Anyway, there's also a secretary that comes up at some point, and I thought Emma Watson, since they looked quite similar to the actress. And then I don't know where he shows up, but Steve Buscemi is in the cast list somewhere. And I thought Caleb Landry Jones would be a perfect new Steve Buscemi. If you don't know him, he's the guy who gets thrown out a window in 3 Billboards, and he's also the brother in Get Out.
Yeah, that's really
He's
good.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my very rough. I have no idea. Wait, Frances McDormand's in this film too? What? Oh, that feels Anyway, I need to see this film.
Is Frances McDormand in it? I don't remember her being in it.
She's a stage actress, so I guess it's just a cameo.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you would like it, Devon. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, there we go.
Cool. Well, I guess that just about wraps up the show tonight.
Right on time.
Yeah.
2 hours. Which I think is usually what we're, going for, and we're a man short tonight, so yeah, we filled up the time quite nicely. Do you guys want to plug anything before we finish up?
I would say the screenwriting Q&A I did last week, Alex was there too. It went really well, I think, and I'm going to do another one, not this coming Friday, but the next one, and it will be with, let me get up the name just so I can check that I've got the right name, Michael Davies, and if anyone is a FilmSoc regular, it's Max's dad. So that's going to be really fun. So absolutely come along to that one. And apart from that, the Tyneside campaign is still chugging along. Donate if you want to. We had a quiz on Saturday. I've started planning the next quiz because I really liked the syllable rounds. So I've got the next syllable round done already. It's great. I want to do it again. And our next goal is a Jackbox party. We're about £20 off that. And then after that, the next goal after that is a interview with Tyneside management that we're going to do. So keep donating. If you know anyone who hasn't donated, encourage them to do it. I've got all the quiz stuff up on the page. So if they want to still kind of go through the quiz stuff and sort of do it unofficially, they're more than welcome to if they want to. That's my plugs.
Cool. Do we know the film for Monday's screening? I'm assuming there's a screening again, or like an
there
Netflix
will
party.
be. Yeah, we don't know the one for this Monday coming yet. I know that we have a collaboration in the works that coming on the 6th of May, which is a like just a Netflix party, but we're doing it in collaboration with the Students' Union's campaign that they're doing called Permission to Pause, which is all about mental health and stress and things like that. And kind of like the main woman who's organizing it, Sarah Al-Khawad, I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, she's going to do a podcast about mental health and things like that, but that won't be involved with the Netflix party. The Netflix party will just be a thing that to get people involved and in hearing about this campaign and everything. So of course we'll post that on Facebook, and we'll have another Netflix party up on Monday. We just haven't decided the movie yet. And that's really all I have, apart from I did also just want to say we had our AGM last night and Peter got head of radio, and so and we should all give you a little round of applause. Yay, Peter.
Thank you.
Had got president, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. So it was quite a big day yesterday. It was quite like a whoa. So that's all the things I have to say.
Cool. Right. Well, I'm sure we'll be back around this time next week. Don't know what we're doing the show on, but I'm sure we'll think of something.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.